Welcome to the GoPROcast, where we invite business doers who are changing lives by sharing their stories, their strategies and tactics, and who bravely talk about their failures that actually led to their biggest successes. Now it's time to Go Pro with Jeremy Torisk. My next guest is Dale Irvin, who is a very, very funny person, a friend of mine from the Cigar Peg, which is a philanthropic club that I belong to, raise some money for charity, smoke some cigars, and enjoy an occasional screwball or scotch now and then. He's a professional summarizer who delivers real-time comedy monologues that are delivered at the conclusion of his clients' meetings and events. It's because of these hilarious and one-of-a-kind presentations that his clients love him so much, as do I, and keep bringing him back year after year. Please welcome to the GoPro show, Dale Irvin. Welcome to the show, Dale.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, so one thing that we like to do is kind of pay homage to one of my heroes. His name is Steve Newberg, and just start off with saying, tell me something good.
Oh, okay. Your best friend is Steve Noodleberg?
He's a very good friend of mine. He's a coach. He's a mentor. Yeah.
Why do you ever tease him about his name?
A lot of people do, but he could back it up.
Okay.
He's a badass. He's a badass in business anyway.
Well, what's good? Well, obviously, I don't know when this will air, but we're just a couple of days away from Christmas, and that's always good.
Yes.
My granddaughter is now 2.5, and she's very excited about it. So I don't know where my daughter is going to fit all the toys we got her, but she'll find another place. Her else wants a bigger house anyhow.
I was going to say, why don't you just fill us in on the fun gifts? Didn't you get her a drum set or something, your granddaughter?
I was going to, but then I figured, well, then my daughter's going to say, oh, well, just leave it here at your house.
Oh, that's great. That is good. Well, yeah, exactly. Backfire, right?
Exactly.
So tell us about first of all, the name of your business is Just Imagine, right? And
that is correct. Yes.
How did you come up with that? Because I'm a big John Lennon fan, and I like Imagine, but knowing you and kind of the way that how I know you and the way you think is so different, it's really fitting to have a name called Just Imagine.
Well, the key to creativity is to ask yourself that question. Just imagine if man could walk on the moon, or just imagine if we got a coronavirus, and that you just ask yourself that all the time. So that's kind of what I used as a guide. So
instead of a negative like what if, it's a more of a positive spin.
Yeah, we had a couple others we turned down, go jump, that was one. Bugger off, that was another one.
And getting started, did you always grow up there in the mid, was that Midwest up there in Chicago area?
I was born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio. And,
okay.
I went to college in Indiana. Then I moved back to Cleveland for a while, and then I got a job offer in Chicago, so I moved there.
And was that in advertising back then?
Yes, it was. I used to be in advertising, and matter of fact, I came up with the slogan "Good to the last drop."
No way.
I did. I came up with it. I came up with it for Otis Elevators, and it didn't really go over very well.
You got talk about reeling me in right there. That was so good.
You got to see when I tell that joke in front of a live audience. Ooh,
good. You don't have to have the last drop though. You only get one of those. Otis Elevators.
Yeah, it's your first and your last. So,
yeah. And so. So Mad Men is one of my favorite shows. Was it? I know it wasn't the 50s when you were doing it, but was it still, cutthroat and working all hours and just trying to? It's a business at the end of the day.
It was the tail end of that era, and it was yeah, it was. I loved watching that show. Going, I think the young guy there, I think he would have been my boss.
Wow! Just somebody you want to throw out the window.
But but yeah, no, it was 4 or 5 martini lunches and all that good stuff, and dancing and romancing with the client, and yeah.
And so were you like a pitch guy, an idea guy? Were you with the spin or artistic? What was your what was the role that you kind of grew into?
I started out as a media buyer, which is the easiest job in the world, because all you do is go out to lunch with guys from different radio stations, and
Yeah.
that was fun. And then went to another agency where I was an account executive on the account for what that time it was Realty World. It was a chain of franchised real estate offices, and I was able, to pretty much drive them into the ground. And that's when I got fired after a couple of years. They said, we've been looking at everything you do, and you don't do that much. Well, about the time you figured that out, I'll see you around.
Oh, that's great. And then I hate the word pivot, thinking out of the box or whatever, but from there, when you got fired, I know one of the things is the mindset shift and the change is, we all seem to go through that. And, my dad has been a truck driver his whole life, but he drove for a couple different companies, but that's all he's ever done. But nowadays, more than ever, last, I don't know, 15 or 20 years, you can just do anything you want, any other thing, not just have to stay in the same industry. Is that when you started getting into more comedy after that?
For a while I was a pimp, and I paid the bills, but no, I was at a real tough place, because now I'm out of work. My daughter is 5 months old.
Wow.
At the time, other ad agencies weren't really in the market for new people at the time. So I told my wife, I said, I've been practicing this comedy thing. I studied at Second City for a year and a half. And then I started doing comedy clubs on New Talent Night and eventually getting booked. I said, I've been doing this comedy thing for a while. I think I can make it work.
Wow.
And she said, okay, you got a year. And so I started working comedy clubs all around the country, and then I discovered cruise ships, which paid much more than comedy clubs, and you kind of had a nice slow ride included in it. After a while it got to be too much, and then from there I discovered public speaking, which paid even more than cruise ships, and you stayed in very nice hotels. So that's been that's pretty much been my career in a nutshell.
Yeah, and then I know that I met you through a cigar peg, a philanthropy, through comedy, really through fun. So I really just know you at a really cursory level, all about fun, meeting up and raising money for great causes. But you have a very unique niche, and so I know that in the intro I kind of talk about it. But how, man, that was you are so good at it. When I saw it, you do it in our first few meetings, I just thought it was for the meeting. And then we were with you, kind of occurred to me that this was a real job for you. And then we went to the Keys, and I was in person and watched you do it 3 days in a row. And I'm always just befuddled and astounded at the way that you see things that go right over every single person's in the room head. And then at the end, you bring it all in and just have the whole room rolling. And so you made that a business for corporate and for functions and events, right? All over the country. You've been doing that for how long?
Absolutely. Well, I took the title of professional summarizer, and am the only one that there is in the country. So that's very nice.
Love
if
it.
You want to find me. And it was something I started, actually, I've been doing it all my life. I tell people now that I get paid for what I used to get detentions for. I've been a smart ass my entire life. And then when I studied at Second City, I learned the art of observation and looking at everything and finding out all the different angles that there are. And for a couple of years at the National Speakers Association, I'd sit in the very back of the room with my friend John Dolan. And as we're watching the speakers, we'd make fun of them. And at one winter workshop, friend of mine came up and she said, are you going to the winter workshop? I said, yeah, I guess so. You do me a favor. I'm supposed to make an announcement about some upcoming event they had in the summer, but I'll be in Africa. And would you do that for me? I said, sure. How much time did they give you? She said, 10 minutes.
Wow.
said, okay.
That's a long announcement.
Yeah. Okay, here's the announcement. There's a talent show. Da, da, da. And I filled the rest of the time with just off the cuff observations of what happened. And they went nuts afterwards. The next winter workshop chair came up to me and said, would you do that at my workshop?
Yeah.
I said, I'm not going to do it once. I'll do it. Let's call it 3 times a day.
Wow.
And so they agreed to that. And a speakers bureau came up to me afterwards, says, how long you been doing this? I said, this would be like the 3rd time. And she goes, I can sell this. I said, that
Wow.
would be very cool.
Yes.
So yeah, it's just a matter of observing and thinking. And I mean, Robin Williams, master at this.
Yeah.
The Jonathan Winters, another master at this. Yeah. Of course, they were both driven crazy, so I have that to look too far off to. Exactly.
We all aren't, really, if we be honest with ourselves. And I started doing this. The natural and adaptive behavior types, and mine are spot on, man. What you see is what you get. But because I've always kind of been a jerk and I didn't really care about it, but I had a heart. I'm a jerk with a heart. But so many people that I meet and I work with, they're just 2 different people in the yes. public or at work than they are with themselves. And so when you are yourself, I think that's just as close to crazy as you can get, because you don't care about other people seeing the real you. I used to not be that way.
It's their problem. It's not my problem.
Right. Yeah. I used to care about what they thought. And then I realized they're really not even thinking about me. At the end of the day, most people aren't. They don't even, that's your own head telling you that other people are.
Exactly.
I like your quote, open your eyes and look at everything around you, then find the fun in what you see. And I quote a lot of Marcus Aurelius and meditations and philosophy of accepting the obstacles and looking at the bad as a good opportunity. But really, I don't really see the fun or really look for the fun in that stuff. Even the bad stuff, you see the fun and the funny in everything, it seems like. Does it ever get kind of like a curse too? Like people like your wife?
It can't. No, my wife has always accepted. My dad was like this. He found the funny in everything, and he taught me to look for it. Said, it's better than finding the sad. And and so I always am looking for it. I have a little plaque on my desk that says WTF, but it stands for where's the funny.
Yeah, I love it. I love that.
I look for that in every situation. But yeah, sometimes it's hard to find. In the middle of a pandemic, it's hard to find, especially when the country is so divided between the vaxxers and the non-vaxxers and the maskers and the idiots and the not that I have an opinion, but yeah, we're just so divided. It's kind of hard to find the funny, because you're probably going to tick off 50% of the people.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly right. When you realize that, what I realize is that, especially this time of separation, is that nobody really on either side, just like no one's thinking about me, no one's even looking out for me either, the right or the left. If you watch too much of this stuff, you get caught up into it. But when you step back, and I travel so much for for 10 years, 45 weeks a year, I could talk to anybody that's the total staunch opposite of my political views, whatever that is, and find a million things to talk about besides that. And that we agree on so many things, or we disagree, but politely. And it's just one topic. If you step back and you go, in reality, everyone in Washington, D.C., it's pretty much up for themselves in their pocket at the end of the day. You really shouldn't take it that serious, but you're right. It doesn't. And you've written prolifically. You have 7 books?
7 books out right now. Yeah.
And some of the names, Insurance as a second language, Laughter Doesn't Hurt, and Dale Irvin Rewrites History. And what's that about? Dale Irvin Rewrites History.
Well, history is one of my favorite subjects. And I thought, all we really know about history is what other people told us. Yeah. We weren't there when Shakespeare was alive. We don't know everything that happened. So I rewrote most of the history stories from a different point of view, It's my favorite book, and I'm thinking about turning it into like a podcast now or a video
I love
cast
that.
because it's that funny. And then the insurance one I wrote because back in the 90s I was getting a lot of work with insurance companies. I mean, a lot. I said, these people need a book. I wrote it
because they've got
for
a language.
them.
Just sitting in on those meetings, you find they have a language on their own. Is that what happened?
Well, pretty much, yeah. So I just made fun of their whole industry, and they snapped it up, man. It was
I
great.
like it. So how do you do that when you go to a meeting? And by the way, one of the things that I saw about rewrite history is why not rewrite it? Because one of the famous quotes that I have ever heard is, history is written by the winners. So it's not even really true anyway, most likely. Whoever
Absolutely.
is the victor, they're the ones that write about it, But anyway, back to like doing corporate summaries. How do you find, have you ever been into a corporate summary and the whole meeting was just totally P&Ls and budgets or when they invite you, do you tell them, look, that's not the kind of meeting that you really want to pay me for because, it's just a serious one? Or do you kind of make sure that you're at a meeting that's befitting to have a comedian sitting in there and making notes on everybody's?
Well, most of the time it works. Some of the topics, I've never been to an entire convention dedicated to numbers and boredom, but some of the topics certainly are. And if I find them, tedious, the audience did too.
Yeah.
And so that's always one way to go. But yeah, it's just, I know more about so many different corporations that I'll never use again. But it's, you get a lot of information, and, being an outsider, it's a lot easier to find the funny in what they say.
That is true. And then I know another favorite thing that you do is the Friday Funnies. How long have you been doing that? That's one of my favorite things to look forward to, even though I'm new to it.
I started that back in about, I think 1990 or something.
Wow.
At the time, I was doing a lot of work for Sprint. And at the time, they had a promotion, Fridays Free, where every phone call you made on a Friday is free. And I'm thinking, I don't really make that many phone calls. They said it's good for your fax machine, too. So what I did was I would fax one sheet at a time to about 100 different people of an 8.5 by 11 sheet of the Friday Funnies to keep my name on their desk and give them a laugh. Then when the internet happened, it became obviously much easier. Then when the video portion happened, I had my own TV show. So, I enjoy doing it. And for you folks out there in listener land, please feel free to subscribe to the Friday Funnies by going to Dale Irvin. It's IRVIN, DaleIrvin.com, and you press the button and you'll get them for free.
Yeah. And so I know that the content is really all over the place. So what strikes you as funny? How do you pick your topics, and how much time does it take to make an episode? And they're very kind of short, right? They're like, what, 5-10 minutes? Yeah, 5 minutes.
Yeah. Well, I'm always thinking about it. I'm always searching the internet for bizarre stories because I want only the most bizarre and the ones that I think have a potential of making me laugh. So I do that. Yeah. And then I'll write the intro based on whatever I'm thinking that morning. So it takes me probably a couple of hours to write it on a Thursday morning. And then I give it to my wife to proofread and edit. And most of the time it's good, but so once in a while she's got a valid point of something I have to change. And then from there I record it for YouTube and edit it, and it's all done in a day.
So how do you find the temperature nowadays of being worrisome about? Does your wife tell you that you just can't do these anymore, you can't talk about this topic anymore? Is anything off limits now that you used to be able to talk about?
She occasionally will bring up something which I don't happen to think is that touchy, but she has more common sense than I do, and she says, you may want to not talk about this one.
Yeah. And then would you say it's a rated G type of everyone inclusive type of show, or
yeah, I mean, when I put it on YouTube, they have a box to check: is this for kids or not for kids? It's not for kids, but
right.
it's
not going to offend.
it's not going to offend anybody.
Yeah.
You know, maybe grandma and a couple of the fart jokes, but you know, other than that.
Good. Okay. Great. Yeah, because I know we've been in rooms together where purposefully there's no bars, right? Everything is kind of open, and I know that you have no problem with the rated R stuff, and neither do I. But when you go to the masses like that, man,
Oh, of course,
it's got to be hard. Is it to or you just do it? It's just easy for you because it's what you do. You see it, like you said, you see it in everything. So
we do, but I always ask the client, you know, especially one that is the first time that I'm working with them, I'll say, if this were a movie, how do you want it rated? And generally they'll say PG or PG-14 or whatever, and which is what it is anyhow. So, you know, but I've never had any, hey, like one of them X-rated ones. How about that? Huh? We got a monkey out back. You can use that.
Yeah. Yeah, one of my favorite stand-up. I memorized all these stand-up because I wanted to be a stand-up. I quit high school back in 10th grade, and I was pretty much homeless. So I was going to move to New Jersey and become a stand-up comedian. That's what my goal was back then. But something happened. The guy who was going to go with me didn't go, and he has a sister who lived there. So they went to the place I live, and I kind of gave up on that. And I come to find out, and I lived here in Fort Lauderdale, find out that Brian Regan, one of the funniest comedians ever, was born here or at least was raised here in Fort Lauderdale, and got all his chops at the little Hollywood Improv here. You know, how stupid was I? I just didn't know that. I thought you had to be in New York. I thought you had to be in California. So I gave up on it when I could have been here the whole time. And, you know, everything happens for a reason. But one of the ones that I remember that was so funny was they were saying they love watching like Goodfellas and Soprano movies and stuff on regular TBS, right? And, you know, like, put the freaking fruitcake in the trunk. What'd you call me, a fruitcake? Yeah, you're a freaking fruitcake. You know, when they try to sanitize those shows,
exactly,
I think it's even funnier. You know, are you calling a fruitcake? Your mom's a fruitcake. You know,
my father was a master at swearing using non-swear words. You know, you cockroach.
just caught himself.
Cheese and crackers.
Yeah, no, Bill Cosby, who's not very popular these days, but he had a great one where he said his dad never finished a sentence. You know, you just went into vapor lock, you know, every sentence. Never had that problem. I did once put soap in one of my son's mouth for calling his brother the A word. And or something like that, and come to find out he actually called him an A word.
Wow.
And I felt pretty horrible after I should have put the soap in the other one's mouth for telling me that his brother called him an a-hole. Jared called me an a-hole, so
well, if that's the worst thing he ever gets called, you know.
Yeah. So, oh man, good times. Well, let me tell you, how else what's in the future? How's that your business coming back after the shutdown, the big shutdown? I know you live in a place that, man, doesn't really want to come back. Seems like looking for every excuse not to open up.
Yeah.
So are you doing this virtually? Because it's definitely something you could be doing virtually.
I am doing it virtually. I really don't have a desire to travel anymore, especially like I did. I mean, I've taken 2 plane trips in the last 2 years, and either one of them had me really all kind of, you know, squirmy.
Yeah.
And so I you know, now it's a virtual world. I am going to be putting in some new equipment into my studio and stuff, and do more from here. Yeah. But I'm also still writing. I've been working on a book for 5-6 years now, and I need to get back to it. It's the same concept of when I rewrite history. I looked for the funny parts of history, and so I figured if I can do that to history, I could probably do it to the most widely published book in history.
Oh boy,
the Bible.
Yeah.
And so I'm about halfway through the Old Testament of summarizing the Bible, and what it's designed to do, it's not heretical at all, but it's designed, some of the stuff you're not going to get unless you read the real Bible. That's why when on the history book, I had fourth grade teachers who were having their kids read it because they wouldn't get it unless they read the real story first.
Right. Wow.
So
Yeah.
it's a labor of love. I don't know if
Yeah.
it'll ever get published or whatever. One guy suggested that I turn it into a podcast and
Yeah.
do
That sounds interesting.
one chapter or one half chapter each day. But
Did you ever see the Drunk History?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Very nice. Very nice.
So it's in the vein of that. I imagine it's just something that's off the cuff, and it would probably get a following because they do pretty well over there. And a lot of people like history. A lot of people, and the people who like history probably like podcasts.
That's true. See, my podcast now that I have aims at baby boomers, which is really stupid because number one, you got to teach them how to download it, and number two, the population is getting smaller every day.
Yeah.
And I'm making new baby boomers, man.
Right. That's funny. Well, this is so in the future you got the books coming out, and you got the podcast and the Friday Funnies, and you're just gonna kind of stay status quo and sail off into the sunset because this is the time of your life, enjoying your granddaughter.
Precisely. I mean, I do this stuff for fun. If anybody wants to pick it up and give me money, I'll gratefully accept it. But I just do this for fun. Like some writers just get up and write every day. I was I was with you in Key West, and I went to Hemingway's house.
Yes.
And they said he would get up at like 4 a.m. and write until about 10, and then have lunch and go fishing.
Yes, that's the life. That is a good life.
That's what I want to do now.
Good. Well, I know that you've been there for me a few times in the short time that I've known you, and I appreciate you. So what can we do for you? What can myself, my listeners, what can we do as we kind of turn the corner on this thing and put it in the books? How can we help you out?
My wife wants the living room painted. And I really don't like ladders. So if they could help me out there. No, I'd like all of your listeners, please, first of all, sign up for the Friday Funnies. Once again, DaleIrvin.com. And I promise I'm going to make you laugh every Friday, which is always a good way to end your week. Yes. And if you don't like them, you can easily unsubscribe. You can also follow us and subscribe to my podcast, Another Day Above Ground.
I love that title.
Which is the title actually came from when I was in college. I was my dad ran a cemetery, and I would work there every summer. And so I'd pick this one guy up on the way to the cemetery. I think his name was Sammy. And every day I'd ask him, "Hey, Sammy, how you doing?" Say, "Hey, it's another day above ground." I go, "Oh, cool." But it's aimed at baby boomers, and we talk about baby boomer stuff. And I'm on with two other very funny people, and it's well worth listening to.
Yeah, and Artie Lange is one of my favorite comedians, mostly from Howard Stern show, his era there. But he is the best storyteller I think that ever lived and told stories because he was so brutally honest with them. But his point of again, it's the comedian part of me, the wannabe comedian, that knowing behind the scenes. He has a theory that every single character that you see out there is just somebody's neighbor. All right, a funny guy's neighbor who wasn't famous, that, like you said, just the guy who gave you the name of that, right? If you were a different type of comedian who did impressions or did characters, that guy probably his whole vibe probably could have been a pretty funny character, And those
Absolutely.
People that Jim Carrey does, people he knows, his father, and people who just nobody knows about except for them, and they live through them. So
we had a guy that lived when I was growing up that lived 2 doors down from us, and just a very, very weird guy. He was a mailman, and he had a bad leg from the war.
Wow.
And he was also the neighborhood barber, and he had an opinion against pretty much everything. And so I came up with a character for radio when I started doing radio in the 80s. And this guy's name was Mike Lubas. So I took the character, made him Eddie Lubitsch, the last angry man. and Eddie has survived through the years. He's done a lot of radio. I'm trying to figure out how to bring him to video without people knowing it's me.
Yeah.
And but yeah.
Well, you can do it with animation now.
Right out of my neighborhood.
I'd say animation, especially. Remember that the cartoon. They can do that pretty cheap too. They make a real-time cartoon where they're drawing it as you're talking. And that might be interesting.
That's a great idea.
It might. I had a couple of characters too growing up. Not only growing up, but in business, some leaders who were somewhat mentors. And I was in my younger, middle-aged part of my learning, and some of these boardroom scenes that I was a party to, I could really go to town with being on a stage and telling these stories, as long as they were okay with the X version, because it was totally rated R. But the way that these board guys talk, these CEOs and stuff, and I do impressions of them all day long, but it's just hard to do them anywhere without kind of looking both ways, and I don't want to live like that, anymore. But I've been around some really colorful people.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think we all have.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you, Dale. And I'm going to, again, send my guys to Dale Irvin, and that's with an I, all right?
IRVIN.
.com.
That's what ticks me off about Cars for Kids. They're giving them to kids and teaching them how to spell wrong. I hate that. So it's Dale Irvin, DALEIRVIN.com.
I appreciate you stopping by the show here and making my people laugh. You always make me laugh. So thank you very much.
Okay, my pleasure. Thank you.